Hey everybody, and welcome to Cooking with the Independent Foodie Live. What I'm going to be doing is taking you through the ingredients first. I'm going to be cooking with Kashmiri chili powder. That's the red one over there. We're going to be using a bit of turmeric, Garam Masala, which is the brownish one, and I'm using the Madras curry powder today. And the reason I'm using the Madras curry powder is because I know that lots of you don't eat very hot food, and I want to keep it mild because we want to keep the flavor. We don't want to, sort of burn our palate. We want to keep it there so we can taste the amazing flavors from all of these spices today. We're also going to be looking at using cardamom. Now, some of you are going to be using the whole spice. I'm going to be using the powdered version. So just pay attention when we talk through, especially the point of when you add these spices. Because if you're adding the powdered version, you add it much later than using the cardamom, the whole pod of the cardamom. Is your bay leaf. So you've got your bay leaf over here. You've got your star anise. Now remember, this is an optional thing. You don't need to be using this, but I'm going to add some just today. And then you've also got your cinnamon. Cinnamon sticks, using very little of the cinnamon stick as well because you don't want to overpower the flavors of the curry. Pan's starting to warm up. Now remember, only 1 tablespoon of oil. I know it's tempting to add more, but we want to eat healthy here. So that's about a tablespoon, and that is sufficient, especially if you're using non-stick cookware. That oil is certainly enough to make sure that you sort of split off your onions as well. Okay, so the oil's lovely and warmed up. Okay, so we've got your onions going in. Now I've chopped my onions up, and what you want to do is make sure that the onions become translucent. Okay, just make sure you keep mixing your onions. You don't want them to go brown. You want them to stay almost translucent. Now the pan's obviously warmed up quite a bit, so I'm going to drop the temperature down to about 6, and we'll cook the rest of the meal at around 6. So you've got your bay leaves, you add your bay leaves. I'm adding my cinnamon, so I've put 2 small pieces of cinnamon in there. And this is the star anise. So star anise or aniseed, you can add if you have it. If you don't, it's an optional piece you can add in there. But it's to give the onions a lovely flavor. Now comes the really, really important part. So please, please, please pay attention. And this is to make sure you get the balance of your spices right. So the first thing that's going in, and some people cook very differently from me. They will tend to add their spices after they've added the meat. I don't do that. I think it's really important to cook off the raw spices. So I'm starting off with my 1 teaspoon, which is a 1 heaped teaspoon of the Kashmiri chili powder, and that's going in. Now, if you want to be a bit braver, you can add a bit more. I'm only using 1 heaped teaspoon of the Kashmiri chili. So I've got that in my pan, and what I want to do is sort of just mix that through, let that fry off. You don't want the spices to burn because you want to keep the lovely sweet flavor of the spices. So that's mixed in there. Okay, that's looking nice. Nice smells coming out of there. Okay, the next spice that you want to add, very importantly, is you want to add your Madras curry powder. So we're putting 2 teaspoons of the Madras curry powder that's going in. 1 and 2. Now I know when you sort of see people cooking on TV, they're adding lots of different spices and lots of dry spices. Today it's about keeping it really simple, and it's not that complicated. Cooking is fun. Cooking is sort of putting the basic ingredients in. You don't want to lose the flavor of the chicken, right? You want it to be a chicken curry, not just sort of a heat wave of spices sort of overwhelming the gentle chicken. Okay, so we've got that going on nicely in there. There's a lovely smell coming out of the pot at the moment, so hopefully you're experiencing the same thing in your kitchen if you're cooking along with me. And then what we're going to add next is turmeric. Now, when you're adding your turmeric, be very careful, right? Because turmeric can be quite bitter. I'm only adding a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric to my curry. So the turmeric's in there. If anytime you have any questions or you get lost along the way, please sort of just message and I will try and get back to you as soon as I can. So keep your eye on this. Right, so your spices are starting to fry off a bit. Now it's time to bring in the chicken. I am using chicken thigh because chicken thigh is full of flavor. So I think, you know, that's what I like using. I've taken out all the excess fat from the chicken thigh just so it remains healthy. Now I can probably hear some of you going, but you haven't added your chilies, Leon, and you haven't added your curry leaves. Not to worry, those come in later. You know, some people add them in the beginning. I like to keep those a bit fresher, so we add them towards the middle of the cook. Putting that in there. And now what you want to do is get your ginger and garlic. So remember, that's 2 teaspoons of ginger and garlic paste, and that's going in. Next step is to add my red chili. I'm adding some chili to give it a bit of heat. That's 1 chili that's been chopped up. We're adding 4 tablespoons of yogurt. So let's start with 2 first and see how that gets on. That's what you want, what you're aiming for, right? So all your colors and flavors are coming out there. And you'll also notice it's not that bright red curry that you normally see, which is normally floating with oil. And again, it's because I'm using the Madras Masala. Madras Masala is more brown, the turmeric gives it a bit of yellow, and then the Kashmiri gives it a bit of red. Now, once you're at this point, you can still add some Kashmiri masala to it. Just move the meat to the side, and then you can add, I'm going to add another ½ teaspoon of Kashmiri in there, just on the side of the pan, and let that sort of roast slightly on the side before I mix it into the rest of the chicken. To get some color, it's going sort of a yellowy orange. I'm going to add potentially another tablespoon of that yogurt that we spoke about. So just keep mixing that. Use the Kashmiri in as well. So remember, we've added another ½ teaspoon of the Kashmiri chili powder, or you can add your chili powder, whatever you're using. Add the curry leaves, and these have amazing flavor. Sinuses are overwhelmed with all the lovely smells that are coming through at the moment. Okay, so we're going to let that sort of simmer for 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to add my tomato into that chicken mix and add a teaspoon in there. Add a teaspoon in that. So remember, we use 2 medium tomatoes. And you want to mix that up. Black pepper and salt will follow with the potatoes. Garam Masala. And Garam Masala is really important in cooking. And that's because it contains all of your lovely spices that give the food its flavor. You've got your ground cloves, your black pepper, cardamom in there as well. So we're adding the Garam Masala. And we're also going to be adding the cardamom. Okay, so I'm putting a teaspoon of, ½ teaspoon of that. For those who are putting in fresh cardamom, you can add that now. Make sure you smash up the cardamom before putting it in. So back to the chicken curry. Now we've added our cardamom, we've added the garam masala, and the reason we added it later is we don't want to burn those spices, right? Now those are spices that have already been roasted, and they have lovely flavors in them. You don't want to lose those lovely flavors. So this is where the curry is at the moment. You can see it's taking on a lovely color. It's starting to look more like a curry. Potatoes for 5 minutes already in the microwave, and that's to make it easier to cook. And we're going to stick that in there with the water, and that's going to help the potatoes cook even longer. So you're looking at roughly about ½ cup of water really to go in if you're just adding your potatoes without using the water from there. Now the potatoes are already mostly cooked, so you basically got another 15 minutes of cooking time. Now very important at this point is to add your salt and your pepper. Roughly about a teaspoon of salt in there, and the same with your pepper. You want to get a teaspoon. If you're a pepper lover, then go for it, add some more. Now that we've added the potatoes to the curry, you might want to turn the heat up slightly to about 7. Okay, so back to 7 on that. The one on the back is on 5. We're going to start focusing on that in a second. So just to recap quickly, we've added our potatoes, we've added our garam masala, we've added our cardamom, we've now sort of put our salt and pepper in there, and all we're doing is we're allowing that to cook. So very important, because you want the potatoes to absorb all that lovely gravy. You want to make sure you mix it, okay? So just mix up your potatoes into your gravy so that it starts to absorb that flavor. So this curry should be done in around 10 minutes. What I'm going to be doing now is starting off the rice. Back down to 6 now that the potatoes have managed to get to temperature. We have a quick check in there. What you start getting is this lovely smell of curry coming through. From there you can see, the gravy is not too oily. There's a bit of oil on the surface, and that's come from the 1 tablespoon of oil that we added in the beginning. It's not floating with oil. It's got a lovely color. It's got lovely flavors and smells coming out of it. And at this point, what I like to do, and most people don't, is I'm going to be adding some fresh coriander. I love coriander. Make sure you wash your bunch before you store it. That's what I do. So straight from there, some fresh coriander going in right now. And then at the end, I will garnish again with coriander. So the food's not cooked, it's still cooking, but I like the flavor of coriander to infuse into my curry as well. Okay. As you can see, potatoes are starting to cook. So move them around again, make sure that they're covered in the gravy, so that you end up with a nice looking, properly cooked chicken dish. Okay, so just giving the curry a quick mix again. We've got about 5 minutes to go before this curry is completely cooked. That's including the potatoes. Just want to quickly go back and check on the chicken curry. And as you can see, we've got about 53 seconds to go for the rice to be cooked. Oh, let's make sure you can see that. And the curry is looking amazing. So the curry is almost there. It's got a lovely smell coming through it, lovely flavors coming through. And the one thing I would say when you're tasting, obviously you want to taste for salt in a bit, but please, 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 fellow foodies, the one thing that annoys me most than anything else is when people dip their spoons into their pot, stick it in their mouth, and then stick it back in the pot again. It is very unhygienic. So what I tend to do is put a bit on my hand to taste it. Lovely flavor. What I'm going to be adding is just a little bit more salt. I think I've been a bit selfish or stingy with the salt, so just a little bit more salt going in there. About another half a teaspoon of salt. Okay, so with that, the rice is cooked, so I'm going to show you the rice in a second. Okay, potatoes are lovely and soft, but they're not falling apart, which is great. Look, that one just broken, as I said that. So be careful how you sort of touch your potatoes with your spoons. What you want to do now is garnish, right? So the first thing you're going to do is grab some fresh coriander. So lots of fresh coriander going on top. And I put the stalks as well sometimes because I think, why waste it? It tastes great, it's got lots of flavor in there. And that's what our curry looks like. So that's the curry. Once the steam goes away, you'll be able to see it. And that's sort of what the curry is going to look like for tonight.
You did. I saw the world turning in my mind. Oh, yesterday you pulled the rug under my feet. Said I'm trying to wake me up. What if I'm making it all up? You're bringing me higher and higher in every way. And all of my doubts, I can feel them fading away. Oh, you're like a fantasy. I know this can't be real. I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling.
I will now show you what the final version looks like. So that's what we've managed to create during this cook-off, or cook-along should I say. You've got your rice, your jeera rice, your carrot salad, your chicken curry, and you've got to see the raita as well on the plate. So thank you again, it's been such fun. And thank you for joining me. Remember, type below for anything else you want. Great to have so much love coming out from all of you, especially during what's been a very trying time for all of us, right? With COVID-19 around, we need to take care of ourselves and each other. So thank you very much for joining The Independent Foodie, and I'll see you soon with maybe my lamb biryani, but next week it's going to be all about prawns. Thank you very much and have a lovely evening.